Skeletons are relatively easy to paint. You just dry brush a brown and follow that up with a bone color, or you start with a bone color and put on a heavy brown wash. But today we are going to see what sort of variety we can get while painting bone. And we'll see if there's any difference between them, and just try different color combinations to give you some different ideas of colors that you can possibly use. Starting off with our Shadesphire skeleton here, we are beginning on this one with a heavy dry brush of Vallejo Model Color Camo Medium Brown. Our next color, dry brushed a little bit lighter, is a mix. We have Model Color Buff mixed with some Game Color Heavy Brown. Our rough dry brushing is not going to fill in every little nook and cranny or all the places where we need to apply the paint, so in between stages here I'm going back with a thinned version of the color I just used and carefully applying it to any areas that didn't get covered by the dry brushing. I'm doing this repeatedly on different steps throughout this whole project, this whole video, and I'm just omitting it so I don't get repetitive here. So this is done at not necessarily every step, but where it is necessary. Next, we follow up with straight buff, and you can see we're being much softer with the dry brush here, much less scrubbing and more of a delicate brushing of this highlight color. And then our final highlight is buff mixed with a little bit of Model Color Pale Sand, just to add some extra edge highlights here and there. Skeletons tend to look really good if you highlight or over highlight the brow ridge. Tends to make them look a little bit more evil. And just a few spots here and there where I want a little bit more highlight, a little thinned color on the top of the skull, and some of the joints as needed. The last thing to do is to paint the teeth, and first we paint them all black, and then using our teeny tiny brush, using some pale sand to add little tiny dots. Don't worry about trying to exactly paint the teeth. Just try to more poorly get small dots that are not connected. This color is a bit dramatic for teeth, especially for skeletons, but making them stand out I think looks more interesting on the skeleton. So that's one skeleton down. Let's try another with a different color recipe and just see what the results will be. This time we are starting off with a little bit lighter color brown, Game Color Earth. Next is Game Color Khaki mixed with a little bit of Game Color Bone White. And then we finish off with straight bone white. Remember, between these steps I am going back with some thinned paint and a smaller brush and adding in or fixing areas where the dry brushing did not cover very well. For our third skeleton, let's go with something a little bit lighter in color. This time we are starting off with Vallejo Model Color English Uniform. Following that, we dry brush with Iraqi Sand. Our third color is Vallejo Model Color Pale Sand. And then we finally finish off with pure whites applied as a highlight edge. I will mention right now, and I'll probably show it later on, but at some point we will take care of any areas where the dry brushing got a little bit too fierce and got into the recesses like between the ribs or in the eye sockets. We take care of those areas by using some thin black paint carefully applied either as a wash, or I should say a thick wash would be the best description of that, but to fill in any of those areas where paint got where it shouldn't. For our fourth contestant, I've already undercoated with Vallejo Game Color English Uniform, and now I'm using a mix of English Uniform and Iraqi Sand. These are the same colors that I used on the previous skeleton, but now I'm mixing them both together so we get a darker color. And then for our edge color, it's a mix of Iraqi Sand and Pale Sand. So you can see we're using the same colors we did previously, but in different ratios, and we're also not taking the color as high. We're not going up to pure Pale Sand or adding white to the mix. Since this guy is crawling directly out of the ground, we want to add a little bit of darker ground color to him. So it looks like he's carrying some of the earth up with him. And so I'm going over with a glaze of brown ink mixed with Vallejo black-green ink. And we're doing this in a few different layers, letting him dry in between. And eventually when we paint our base color, we'll have some of that brown-green color on the base as well. On to our next skeleton now. For this guy, we're going to try adding a little bit of a green tone to the bone. So we are starting off with Vallejo Model Color Brown Violet. Our next color is Vallejo Model Color Khaki, and we're going with that because the khaki does have a slight green tinge to it, ever so slightly. Our next color is a mix of the khaki with Game Color Bone White. And then our final highlight edge color, straight Bone White. For our final skeleton, let's go with something with a little bit of a yellow ochre tone. We are going to start off with Vallejo Model Color Green Ochre. Our next color is a equal mix of Green Ochre and Buff. And then we finish up with an edge highlight of straight Buff. And there you have it, 6 different recipes on how to paint bone. Now, a couple points I want to bring up here. First of all, you're probably thinking, well, they all look pretty similar. Well, that is true. We are painting bone here, and we all pretty much know what bone looks like for the most part, so we can't add any color in the world and still have it look like bone. We're not painting a cloak or a tunic here that could be painted any primary color. So we are limited. You can go with a darker color with the bone, but I am painting a unit here and I couldn't do anything that drastically different. Subtle variation will still fit into the unit. The other reason why I'm doing this is a lot of novice painters, when you're just starting out, really just copy whatever they read or find on the internet. They go out and get the colors. They're, this is how to paint bone. This is the only way to do it. And I really want to show, no, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and you don't have to run out and get specific colors. You can copy this guide if you want, or as you can see, I used a variety of different browns, a variety of different light browns, and different bone-ish colors, and I still ended up with decent looking skeletons. So you don't have to follow my guide or anyone else's guide religiously. You can add variations depending on colors that you perhaps already own. So that's it. I hope this helps. In the next part, we will take care of painting the rest of the skeletons, but really wanted to show you all the different ways you can add a little subtlety to your skeleton army. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.
I seem to have died. Is that okay?